What we're going to do today, I want to focus on two things. The first is the Great Depression. Chris, go ahead, you have a seat. Great Depression, and then the second is we're going to be talking about unemployment. Different types of unemployment. We'll go ahead and break you out into groups. Here's my first question to everyone. Chris, let's start with you. What do you know about the Great Depression? And don't tell me it was great.
It was depressing.
It was depressing. This is true. Can you give me one other thing?
I mean, as much as I know, I'm pretty sure it was about how the economy started dropping.
Excellent. And somebody else? Cody?
Wall Street crash.
Wall Street crash. Excellent. Anyone else? What about farmers? Anyone? Tell me what happened with farmers. Can somebody tell me when it happened? Roughly.
It was real dry and farmers couldn't farm.
Thank you, Kurt. Roughly the year.
1960s.
No, it wasn't 1960. It was in the 1930s. Even though the stock market crash is recognized and what triggered the Great Depression, there were a ton of events leading up to it in the 1920s. Does anyone know anything about the 1920s?
World War I.
When did the World War I end?
Roughly around 1920s.
You're close, 1918. Because I want to give you a sense of what's going on in the 1920s. It is a wild and crazy time. Women have just won the right to vote. But then we have problems because there's a real dichotomy in the U.S. economy. While some people are having a great time in New York City, we have the international scene. And Cody, when you were describing World War I, we see the European economies totally decimated. Okay? Germany is going to be forced to pay for the entire cost of the war. So in the 1920s, our poor farmers are seeing their prices go down for their food. And Asia and South America supplying Europe with consumer goods. So we're facing a big problem, right? So the other problem is banks are greedy and they continue to make loans. And unfortunately at this time, the Federal Reserve doesn't control the banks. There's no SEC, the Securities Commission, nothing. So the banks are doing whatever they want, and they want to make the quick money, so they keep making bad loans. Sid, you have money in a bank. You've heard from your neighbors that the bank is ready to close, or they think the bank's going to close. What are you going to do? Sid's going to take her money out. She doesn't want to keep her money in a bank that's being closed. So what was happening is people were making runs on the bank and asking for all their money. So people are hoarding money now. So now money isn't being put into circulation. So do you see how all of this is kind of a vicious cycle? It's a perfect storm between the banks, the stock market, the money supply. All of this will lead up to the crash. What I'd like to do is just read you a section, and then I'm going to show you some pictures from that time so that you get a good idea. Just think for a minute what it was like for that farmer or that family having to drive off. And then the dispossessed were drawn west, from Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, from Nevada and Arkansas. Families, tribes, dusted out, tractored out, carloads, caravans, homeless and hungry, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, and 200,000. And they streamed over the mountains, hungry and restless as ants. This is a very, very famous photograph taken by Dorothea Lay. That's the picture I showed you. It's a little grainy. That's what they were living in. This is called the Lorenz curve. This shows the distribution of income, the actual distribution with an equal distribution of income. This is the theory. 20% of the households should have 20% of the wealth of the income. But that's not true. If it was perfect, 60% of households would have 60% of income, et cetera, et cetera. But the Lorenz curve shows the actual income distribution. And this is what we have. And you can see how it breaks down. With it being the next 4%, over 27, next 5%, and it goes down like that. Remember what it looked like in that mother's eyes. Then I want you to look at this family. Okay? This is not 1933. This is today. We're going to be talking about different types of employment, and we're going to pick this up tomorrow. But what I'm going to have you do is divide up into groups. You'll be each given a job, which you can decide what you want your job to be. We'll look up the different types of unemployment, and then you'll get with your group, discuss it, present an example to the class. And then we'll do Jeopardy. That should be a good day. Does anyone have any questions about what we talked about today? Pretty powerful stuff, I know. And I really appreciate your attention.